XRP can still make you rich, but if you hold less than $100 or less than $1,000 worth of XRP, you need to know something. Right now with gold at an all-time high, the stock market at all-time highs, Bitcoin just made an all-time high, but now is pulling back with the rest of the cryptocurrency market. This is just another day. Nothing out of the ordinary here. For those of you that have been around for the past few years, 5 to 10% dips in a day. It's another walk in the park for the crypto veterans. So we have to talk about why this sell-off is taking place, the ideal conditions for a continuation higher, and what is the former PayPal president saying about Bitcoin that we all need to pay attention to. Plus, the CEO of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, gave his prediction about Bitcoin and the altcoin market that is absolutely massive. And my video yesterday painted the picture for what to expect for XRP in the short term that is taking place right now. So I'm going to give my predictions in this video that you do not want to miss. So comment 777 if you're feeling blessed, if you're feeling bullish, and if you're going to become the first millionaire in your family tree. Confirm it by tapping the subscribe button. Let's run it. Do you love crypto, but are you worried about taxes shrinking your retirement nest egg? Here's the deal. Trading and selling crypto can trigger capital gains taxes, eating into your wealth. A crypto IRA fixes that. Per IRS publication 590B, traditional IRA gains like those from crypto aren't taxed until distributed. That's why we've partnered with iTrust Capital, a leading crypto IRA company in the USA, to sponsor today's video. And they offer institutional grade custody for retail clients that want to set up their crypto IRAs for retirement, leveraging top storage solutions like Fidelity, Wells Fargo, and Coinbase Prime to keep your assets secure. To get started, simply click the link in the description of this video, sign up for free, and fund your account with cash. They also offer 401k rollovers or crypto transfers, and you can trade 24/7 with just 1% transaction fees and no maintenance costs. As always, I'm not a CPA or financial advisor, so consult one for tax advice, and we do earn a commission if you sign up using our link below to fund your crypto IRA account, but that helps support value-based videos like this. And iTrust Capital already has over 200,000 crypto IRA accounts and over $14 billion in transactions, proving they're trusted by smart investors just like you. So click the link below, get started now by funding your account today, and let's create generational wealth together. All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So with Binance dumping millions of dollars of Bitcoin and Ethereum at all-time highs, why are they doing this? Well, as a centralized exchange, you get a lot of traders that open up leverage longs anywhere from 10x, 20x, sometimes 50x or higher for the absolute degens. And so they're able to see this on their order books, and anyone could look this stuff up. They're called liquidation heat maps. So when an exchange sees this, they can tell how many are long versus how many are short on their exchange. So they have a vested interest in liquidating and wrecking these traders before the markets go higher. And because they hold so much crypto, they can manipulate the market. For example, Binance's wallet here holds over 244 billion crypto, 74 billion in Bitcoin, BNB is 47 billion, 37 billion in USDT, 17 billion in Ethereum. Now, I'm not sure exactly what percentage of that is theirs versus custody of their clients' funds, but I'm sure they got a lot. So on TradingView under indicators, you can type in open interest suite aggregated by Leviathan here, and then you just click it and you'll see how much in leverage is on the table here. And so once we get up to these peak levels here, we see these pullbacks. Now, if we look at Bitcoin on the weekly chart, you can see the open interest is at $11.43 billion. Now, in my opinion, this is just a little minor pullback before Bitcoin breaks out to the upside. So on the hourly chart, we can see that the relative strength index dipped down here to about 24. The stochastic RSI with that sell-off dropped all the way down here to 0 for the K line, the D line. So now we're experiencing a little bounce. So it's possible for Bitcoin to go a little bit lower. In my previous videos, I've been talking about bullish divergences and what those look like. Those are simply lower lows on the price chart, and those are higher lows on a key indicator. So I would want to see the relative strength index putting in a higher low while the price chart makes a lower low. With Bitcoin putting in a lower low like this, then eventually I would expect a spring. Or, I mean, if we shoot out of here right now, then that would be great. But nonetheless, a lot of people get overly bullish when they see these breakouts like this, and then they buy into the breakouts. Exchanges like Binance liquidate all of the leverage traders. They send the price lower, and then you see these divergences play out on the chart, and you give it time for the relative strength index to start putting in higher lows while the price chart puts in these lower lows in some type of like falling wedge pattern. After you see these sell-offs, bounces, sell-off, bounce, sell-off, bounce, sell-off, once the low is finally in, I'll show you what this looks like here and what to expect so you guys can become better investors investors, better traders, and just overall not get wrecked thinking that you're buying the dip and the dip just keeps on dipping. So to give you an example here, okay, when Bitcoin broke out back here on the 13th of August, everyone thought Bitcoin was just going to explode to the upside, and Bitcoin just barely breached this high right here from the 13th of or the 14th of July. It just barely made it above it. And then we saw this aggressive sell-off like what we're seeing right now. The relative strength index comes down here to about 26, and then we see a short-term bounce in the upside, kind of similar to what we're seeing happen right now, a short-term bounce to the upside. Now, you don't know exactly how deep these sell-offs are going to be, and you don't know how long they go for. So one thing you want to do is wait for key trend reversals and identify key points of support and resistance here. So this is a key point of support right here at about $112,000. When we saw this sell-off take place, right away, that's where I would watch for Bitcoin's price chart to come in contact with to see if it would hold it or break below it. And as you can see, the chart, after experiencing that bounce, saw another sell-off to the downside. The short relief rallies here on the shorter time frames, and we come back in contact with that support. Now, we saw it bounce off of the support aggressively here to $117,000, but then return back to it and struggle to hold it. Once we broke below it like this, what I would be doing at this point is I'd be looking at more macro timeframes like the 4-hour or the daily here to see if we can spot any type of bullish divergence, because it's very clear we were in a downtrend after the sell-off here, forming lower highs and lower lows. So we want to wait for a trend reversal after this downtrend is done playing out. So when Bitcoin started to break out right here on the 2nd of September, usually after a downtrend is done, we see the initial breakout, then we see a higher low or an equal low as the support, and then we look for divergences on the chart. So with this example right here, you can see the new support is at $107,000 for Bitcoin. And if you look at the relative strength index at the bottom of the screen, we want to find the lowest low on the RSI, and that's right here on the 19th of August at 29. And you can see that the relative strength index has been putting in higher lows, whereas the price chart from that point on the 19th of August had been putting in lower lows. We can see one lower low while the RSI put in a higher low. We see the next lower low, whereas the RSI put in another higher low. We see the next lowest low, whereas the RSI put in another higher low. So this is a sign that the momentum is shifting. This is what I look for. I look for several higher lows on the relative strength index. And sure enough, we can see those higher lows. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. And now that we see a break of trend, which is this descending resistance right here, usually how these reversals take place is we see the price chop around this range, and then we see another breakout to the upside, and we eventually clear these key levels of resistance. And so this is where the stochastic RSI comes into place to get a good entry point, because right now on this example, we're at 10 and 8.87 on the stochastic RSI. So that's where I would expect a bounce from this level, but we still need to watch this key resistance right here, because until we clear $113,000, roughly $400 here, we're still in a downtrend. We need to clear a horizontal resistance, not just a descending resistance, for a much more macro trend reversal to get more aggressive for Bitcoin at this point right here. This is what I look for. Now, this is going to completely change the game for you guys, because watch how this plays out. So the price goes back into resistance, gets rejected from it, and then it consolidates here below resistance until eventually we break above it like this. And so now that the price is breaking above it, Bitcoin is most likely to go back up to the previous range high that it was at, all the way up here to retest it as resistance. And so this is where we watch the relative strength index now to blow off top and come upwards of 80 or 90 to get up here to see a sell-off and a much larger correction. So let's just see how this plays out here. I don't know exactly what this will look like, but you can see the price working its way through here, coming back down for a bigger correction, all the way back down to these levels that we're at right here. And so this whole entire move would have been a great short-term trade, but now that Bitcoin is back down at these levels, we do the exact same thing again. We watch this support right here. We see if this support holds. We zoom into the more micro time frames. If you can't spot a divergence on the macro time frames, now if you can spot a divergence on like the daily, then you don't need to go the 4-hour. But if you can't spot it on the daily and you do spot it on the 4-hour, then you don't really need to go into the hourly or the 15-minute unless you're getting your entry point down. So right here on the 22nd of September, we can see the RSI put in the lowest low, then it put in a higher low. So this is the first higher low. So we could technically see this bearish divergence play out for a while, but eventually there would be a spring to the upside. So I look at the trend, I draw my descending resistance, I draw my horizontal resistances and supports, and we see how Bitcoin responds to them. And then I just wait patiently for them to clear and back test them to see if they hold before I get more aggressive to the upside. So let's just play this out and let's see what happens here. So as you can see, Bitcoin recovered quicker and it respected this support over here at $107,000. Now, sometimes these recoveries are more aggressive. Sometimes they take a little bit longer like this. Sometimes they're just massive V-shaped recoveries to the upside. So the smartest move if you're buying SPY is to be accumulating after multiple points of contact on an ascending support on the relative strength index to get a better deal. So you're accumulating closer to the low, or on the breakout and the back test of the descending resistances as well, because once you clear descending resistance, sometimes you ride on top of it. So I like to accumulate the back tests of those, because sometimes we put in an equal low or maybe a little lower low, then we reverse, or we just put in higher lows and then we bounce off of an ascending support after a downtrend is done. So if we just let this play out and we see where Bitcoin is right now after that breakout, we're at $122,000. So the relative strength index is at 47, middle of the range. The stochastic RSI is at 4 and 3 for the K line, the D line. So what I would expect in the short term for Bitcoin is a short term bounce. And we'll see if it puts in a new high or if it gets rejected in this downtrend on a more micro time frame like the hourly. Even if we go into the 15-minute chart here, you can see the RSI is at 54, the stochastic is at 90 and 82. And so there could be a push to the upside, but then I would expect this to get met by some resistance and a sell-off further to the downside because we broke this uptrend here. So this would just be a retracement bounce for Bitcoin before we see a much larger sell-off. And then we need to finish up a downtrend looking for a bullish divergence before a major reversal back into price discovery. So don't get me wrong, I think Bitcoin's going to do well, but I think it'll look something like this before that takes place. And I could be wrong there, but on the 15-minute chart, looking at the relative strength index, the lowest low on the RSI is right here on the 7th of October. That's on this low right here on the price chart. We haven't put in a lower low here with a higher low on the RSI, so there is no bullish divergence forming yet. I like to look for bullish divergences for major reversals. But nonetheless, the next few months for Bitcoin are extremely bullish. We just see short-term temporary pullback. So you can apply that to get a better deal and to get better entry points for yourself, regardless of whatever happens fundamentally, because this just in, Citadel's Ken Griffin is saying inflation is above target and the dollar is falling, which creates ideal conditions for Bitcoin.
Inflation is substantially above target and substantially above target in all forecasts for next year. I mean, it's part of the reason the dollar's depreciated by about 10% in the first half of this year. It's the single biggest decline in the US dollar in 6 months in 50 years. Gold is at record highs. And the appreciation in other dollar substitutes, to use that word loosely, in items like crypto, for example, is unbelievable. So we're seeing substantial asset inflation away from the dollar as people are looking for ways to effectively de-dollarize or de-risk their portfolios vis-a-vis U.S. sovereign risk.
Are you really seeing that?
No, just check the price of gold.
Well,
I mean, I don't have to look very hard.
It's a life of its own. Yeah.
What?
It's a life of its own, gold.
No, but it's a life of its own as you see sovereigns around the world, as you see central banks around the world, as you see individual investors around the world go, you know what? I now view gold as a safe harbor asset in a way that the dollar used to be viewed. That's what's really concerning to me. And there's been plenty of published research in recent weeks, months, about foreign investors now when they buy U.S. equities, hedging the returns back to their local currency. So that, again, is a bifurcation of I'm going to bet on American business, but I want to immunize some of my sovereign exposure to the United States.
And if you look at the price of gold, it's about ready to break $4,000. It is just marching higher and higher and higher. Now, I thought this was pretty interesting. Ken Griffin here, the CEO of Citadel, has this logo right here, which is a castle. Now, if you guys remember Bearable Guy, he posted this Riddler photo right here, leading down the purple path to the castle having USD, XRP, and Bitcoin. So as we get closer to the end of the year, I would expect there to be the iconic New Year's Eve Christmas post here from Bearable Guy, because the last post was in August and he says the bear smiles, whereas the only post before then was January 20th of this year. The post before then was December of 2024. So there's only been 3 posts here, then previously May and then December of 2023. So he's only posting like 2 times per year. And the most important ones are these images here on December 24th. So I would expect there to be an image right before Christmas posted of them either in the castle or somewhere. We'll see what happens here. But I thought this was pretty crazy because Citadel's logo is a castle. And it's insane that CZ, the CEO of Binance, his younger brother is the CEO of Citadel Securities. How crazy is that? Small world, right? Now, the billionaires at the top are insiders. CZ is one of the wealthiest men in the world. So if his younger brother is the CEO of Citadel Securities, well, Ken Griffin is the CEO of Citadel LLC. They're 2 different things. I know they seem like the same thing. But Citadel Securities is a massive global market maker with $18 billion in trading capital. It is the largest U.S. equity and options market maker, trading over 20% of US equities volume and executing more than 1/3 of US retail volume through its automated platforms. And speaking of the traditional market, well, the S&P just launched a new crypto index with 10 different cryptocurrencies. Number one is Bitcoin, then Ethereum, and then look at that, XRP, BNB, Solana, Tron, Cardano, Chainlink, Avalanche, and Hyperliquid. And Paul Tudor Jones was just on CNBC talking about the stock market and where we could be right now.
You were, I think, dare I say, very pessimistic the last time I saw you here back in May. How do you feel now?
Well, it's like the Prince song. It's 1999. Party like it's 1999, right? Feels exactly like 1999. I don't know whether we'll actually replay it exactly, but I think all the ingredients are in place. And certainly from a trading standpoint, you have to position yourself like it's October 99. I don't see why you would do anything but that. And remember, the NASDAQ doubled between the first week of October 99 and March of 2000.
And if you look on the left-hand side of the screen for the S&P 500, in October of 99, we saw by the 19th of October another low here, and then the market erupted to the upside to the all-time high. Then we went into the crash. So from the 19th of October, the markets rallied another 322 days. So we know that on the right-hand side of the screen, the S&P 500 is breaking out and is going to continue higher until we see a blow off top. The real question is, how much longer do we go for until we see a much larger crash? Well, there's likely to be a pullback at some point. I mean, on the left-hand side of the screen, look at this bearish divergence that played out for a while, even going from July of 1997. We just see these drastic higher highs on the S&P, and then from the relative strength index, we see these lower highs here, where it took over 952 days. And we can go back even further because the relative strength index was all the way up here in 1995, while the price chart was still putting in higher highs. So it's similar to Bitcoin's dominance, where it can just keep going up for a while the relative strength index loses momentum, forming lower highs. But on the right-hand side of the screen, we saw a bearish divergence here with higher highs on the price chart and then lower highs on the relative strength index. But we saw a reset here with this major sell-off in this V-shaped recovery. You know, the S&P came all the way down here, similar to what happened right here by September of 1998, and then made a V-shaped recovery. So we're arguably going through what we went through right here, right now, after this V-shaped recovery post, 1998. So I think he's accurate with this. And also look at the stochastic RSI. We're at 96 and 96 for the K line, the D line in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And on the left-hand side of the screen, when we were up at these levels, we just experienced some short-term chop, but continuing higher, so it wasn't that deep of a correction. So we could experience a little pullback here, but then chop higher, forming higher highs and higher lows, while the stochastic RSI resets back down here, and the relative strength index pulls back a little bit and then sees a continuation of this bearish divergence for more lower highs on the macro, while the price chart puts in higher highs to form this blow off top before we eventually go into the crash. But nonetheless, I believe a crash is coming. We'll just see if it happens going into 2026 or a little bit later in 2026. Remember, a crash just doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to be like in a matter of a month. That's a COVID situation or a black swan event. When the top was in for the S&P 500, it took 945 days to reach a bottom. So it's going to take some time for this to bottom out. And until then, I still think there's a lot of time left to make money in the markets. And XRP being one of the cryptocurrencies in the top 10, it's going to be one of the strongest performers on the next major breakout for total twos chart. So we have the most influential companies and people in the world all talking about crypto going higher. And now the former PayPal president is saying this about crypto.
I still feel Bitcoin is severely undervalued, especially if you compare it to gold. Like if Bitcoin was worth as much as gold, it would be $1.3 million a Bitcoin. And I think it's just a matter of time. And I also feel like the utility phase of Bitcoin as a neutral settlement network and asset for all of the payments in the world hasn't been priced in at all. So I think it's just still so incredibly early for the asset.
So unless we see an aggressive V-shaped recovery for Bitcoin back to, the high that it just made, then just watch this downtrend for Bitcoin and see how it plays out. Because in order for altcoins like XRP to be bullish, we want Bitcoin to make a new all-time high. And in my video yesterday, this is what I said for my short-term expectations for XRP. When XRP was rallying up here to $3.05, look at what was happening on the stochastic RSI. We were in overbought territory. The relative strength index went all the way up to 66 here. And now that we're pulling back, we see the stochastic RSI resetting back down below 20. So I don't think the low's in yet for XRP on this pullback. We need to see the stochastic RSI bottom out here before it reverses. We also need to see the relative strength index come down a little bit further. So patience is going to be your friend here. But nonetheless, if we look on the macro here on the daily, the real fun for XRP begins once we clear this level of resistance right here. We're also at 76 and 83 on the stochastic RSI. So it's not the best entry point for XRP. We're in a bull flag here on this breakout. So I would expect XRP to trend a little bit lower in the short term and then eventually retest this resistance, form some other type of bull flag, and then break out if total 2 is breaking out. So just watch the stochastic RSI, watch the relative strength index here. Just because we're above 80 and we're experiencing a bearish cross doesn't mean this can't be a fake out. We experienced a bullish cross back to the upside here, because look what happened here from the 26th of June until July. For an entire month, the stochastic RSI stayed above 80 while the price broke out drastically. We saw this breakout, a little temporary pullback, breakout, pullback, and the price was just coiling up here after this low, and then eventually massive spring to the upside. So XRP could do something like that if total 2 starts to break out rapidly and we see this major move to the upside. Then XRP would most likely make a major move to the upside, similar to what happened back here in July and yeah, pretty much all through July to the 23rd of July of 2025, back to the all-time high. Because I've been talking about this for weeks. This is a massive cup and handle formation for XRP. This is the cup, this rounded bottom, and we're finishing up the handle right here. And so I would expect XRP to just break out, bull flag, break out, bull flag, and ultimately, once we clear $3.18, then it's on, because that's the major neckline, like how this was the neckline right here back on the 12th of May. Once we broke that neckline, we just exploded to the upside. Now, it wasn't the craziest move, but it was a move nonetheless from this low of about 89, 90%. So that's, almost a 2x for your portfolio. So the next move for XRP would be this whole entire move right here to the breakout point. So that would basically put XRP at roughly $4.80 to $5, somewhere around there. That's where the next stop for XRP, I think, is on this aggressive move before the next consolidation for XRP. Now, we will revisit this and we will talk about these major indicators that would flash, that would signal if that's the end or if that's just the beginning for XRP before the next major move to the upside higher this bull run. Because a lot of people think that it's going to stop at $5, but a lot of people are also saying that XRP is going to go to $10, $20, $30. And while I think it's possible, I do not base my decisions on price predictions. I base it on confluence of key indicators telling me the same thing. And I'll get into what those indicators are in another video. If you guys want to see that, then give this a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments below. But sure enough, what happened there? XRP sold off. Why did it sell off? Well, some people could argue that it's manipulation from Binance, it's liquidations from Bitcoin, cascading into XRP. But if you look at a chart, you don't need to know what the fundamental reason is for it. You just know not to accumulate when we're in overbought conditions on these key indicators here. And so when XRP pulled back from $3.15, we were also in this downtrend getting rejected from a descending resistance here. If you're always buying into resistance, then the majority of the time you're just going to get wrecked. You're going to get sold on. So on the opposite side of the spectrum, what do we see now in my expectations moving forward for XRP? Well, the recent low on the relative strength index is right here at about 23 oversold conditions. XRP's price chart went to $2.85. So with a bounce to the upside, I would expect XRP to bounce in the short term. And depending on how aggressive this bounce is, will be based on what happens with Bitcoin. But I expect there to be some resistance here. So the real question is, if we hold this support, if we don't hold this support and we continue lower, well, the previous support levels for XRP are around $2.82. And then the next one is pretty much down here at these levels, and it can get pretty drastic, So regardless of wherever the price bottoms out at, we wait for trend reversals, and we also watch the RSI to look for bullish divergences. And again, a bullish divergence, lower low on the price chart, higher low on the RSI, and we start to see several higher lows like this as the RSI starts to work its way out of here and XRP finally puts in the lowest low. Then you start to see a recovery out of here after clearing a descending resistance. So right now, this is what I would expect the price chart to look like. Now, it's not going to look like this. I know a lot of people are like, you're wrong. Of course I'm going to be wrong because I'm doing chicken scratch here. I'm giving examples, but this is what we look for to better understand when the best time to enter is. Because right now, if you're entering in on XRP and you're just buying, yeah, sure, you might get this little bounce here, but then it could be faced with a rejection and a further sell-off to the downside to come back down to these levels that we were at all the way back here. And then if we respect these these levels, we want to wait for a major move back to the upside and then watch for XRP to do something like this. This is what I would want to see. And I watch the relative strength index to keep putting in higher lows, even with these back tests after the breakout here, because once you see a move to the upside from here, it's followed by the bears selling it off a little bit further. Now, we'll see if it plays out like this. We'll see how much lower we go. Ideally, closer to $2.80 or even $2.75 would be amazing for XRP. But we just need to watch this downtrend here. And if we break the downtrend aggressively, then just watch for these micro pullbacks and keep your eyes on these indicators here. Because if we're down here closer to 0 on the stochastic RSI and the relative strength index is oversold, on the macro, you're just getting better entry points. So I don't think this is a terrible entry point for XRP. Again, I'm not going to tell you to buy it. I'm not telling you to sell XRP, but this isn't terrible. I think we can get even better, do something like this before we break out. But I do think a move is going to come for XRP. I think we're just going to put in a higher low than what we did on the 26th of September. Now, if we don't, things could get troublesome. If we clear these lows right here, I would definitely want to see a higher low than this for XRP eventually to break this downtrend here. So XRP can make you rich in the long term, but what you need to know is how to accumulate these dips rather than always buying the breakouts and getting aggressive by looking at these indicators, looking for confluence. And this is what we teach inside of Altcoin Pro University. You can get started through the link below. Just click on Classroom, scroll down here, go to Technical Analysis Essentials. There's a 28 video training series going through everything that you need to lay the groundwork, understand TradingView, know how to draw trend lines, horizontal, vertical lines, price ranges, long short position tools, etc. It'll make you a better trader. It'll make you a better investor. If you haven't gone through this yet and you're just watching these videos, this is a more structured version of what I share with you guys. And Paul's done an incredible job on this. I've learned so much from him ever since 2017. So I thought this was a good clip from Charles Hoskinson, the CEO of Cardano, what he said his expectations are for Bitcoin and the altcoin market.
I think we're ready for the bull run. It's coming very soon. And
how soon, Charles? How soon is this bull run?
I think after the Clarity Act passes, and there's a good chance that's going to pass in October, there's a really good possibility that we're going to see the altcoins pump. So Bitcoin will probably cap around 250, and then you'll see a lot of stuff work its way into the altcoin space with people looking for alpha. So I wouldn't be surprised first quarter of 2026 and second quarter of 2026 where it kind of is really on the ascendancy, and then it'll kind of taper off and die down if it follows prior bull markets that we've had. But this is a different one because institutions are leading it, not retail investors. And so I've never experienced this in my career because every other one was a retail-led bull market. But overall, everybody's very optimistic. U.S. government's optimistic. I was just at a Senate roundtable with a bunch of people, and everybody's working as one voice to try to get clarity passed. And once that's done, there's no more Gary Gensler, no more SEC burning us all to death. The U.S. government's open for business. Just insane.
Now, if we look at Total 2's chart, we can see there's a bearish cross up here above 80, and we're turning down on the weekly on the stochastic RSI while we're pulling back from this recent breakout right here. So I would just expect some more chop for Total 2 while the stochastic RSI comes down a little bit further before we break out to the upside. So a little more volatility here, but eventually I would expect there to be a move to the upside if Bitcoin starts breaking out. So just because we're in overbought conditions here on the stochastic RSI on the weekly and on the daily isn't necessarily a bad thing, because we can also connect the lows here. We can see higher lows on the price chart. We also see lower low on the relative strength index, which if you guys didn't watch my video yesterday, I broke down what a hidden bullish divergence is. And that's just simply when the price chart puts in a higher low, but yet the relative strength index or another key indicator puts in a lower low. This is simply a continuation pattern here. And so even if we experience a pullback here, I would expect us to respect this ascending support before continuing higher. So if we pull back in the short term, then I would expect the stochastic RSI to come back down, to reset, and then reverse to the upside. The RSI as well too. Even if we put in a lower low on the RSI, just a higher low on the price chart would further confirm this hidden bullish divergence for another bounce to the upside. So if we get a move down, this could quite possibly be the last move down before an explosive move to the upside for the altcoin market. That would be my expectation. So just keep your eyes closely on this chart, because we don't get these moves down very frequently. I mean, the last one here was on the 25th of September. The one before then was on the 2nd of August. So sometimes they happen like once a month. So if we get a move down in October here, well then by November, I would expect there to be an aggressive breakout in the market. So what do you do while the market ranges between resistance and support? And let's say we chop through here for a little bit before we work our way back up through. resistance into price discovery. Well, the best thing that you can possibly do is earn yield on your crypto, because if you have 10K or more in crypto, you're literally giving up an extra $300 per month in passive income. You're giving up on a free 3 to 8% additional monthly yield just because it's sitting on an exchange like Coinbase or Binance and you're being lazy. You're taught to hodl, just wait for price appreciation, and this is costing you thousands of dollars. So let's see what happens here. While your assets are sitting there doing absolutely nothing and inflation is kicking your ass. For example, Ethereum didn't do anything over the course of 3 months. XRP didn't do anything over a whole year. And Solana, same thing. It didn't do anything for an even longer period of time while you sat there making no money. And I'm not saying that these are bad investments. It's quite the opposite, actually. But the smartest investors in the world make their crypto work for them to generate additional yield. And why would you not do that? You're holding these crypto assets anyways. It's like buying a rental property and not renting it out. If you hold on to the property because you believe that it's going to appreciate in value over years, why wouldn't you rent it out so someone else can pay your mortgage while you still get the value appreciation? So it makes no sense to just hold your crypto without earning yield on your idle coins. And if you're just holding your crypto on exchanges like Coinbase, your assets aren't safe. In fact, Coinbase was hacked for $400 million and the hackers bribed Coinbase employees so they could access sensitive user information, demanding a $20 million ransom from Coinbase, which the company refused to pay.
I want to make you aware of a disturbing email that we received recently at Coinbase. It was a ransom note demanding $20 million in Bitcoin in exchange for these attackers not releasing some information they claim to have obtained on our customers. I'm going to respond publicly to these attackers by saying no. We are not going to pay your ransom.
And I even received a letter in the mail saying that my information was included in that hack. So I'm speaking from firsthand experience here, not just an article that I read online. So not only are you leaving free money on the table by not earning yield on your idle crypto, but you're also putting yourself at risk of losing it all, getting hacked, or having your account frozen by keeping your crypto on centralized exchanges. Because if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. You already know this, so I don't have to tell you. You can't afford to be lazy with your capital. The US is drowning in nearly $40 trillion in debt, so this is your insurance against the system. To learn how you can earn passive income on your coins every single day while protecting your capital from hacks or scammers, my research team put together a step-by-step tutorial for you to start earning yield on your crypto today, and it takes less than 10 minutes to get set up. All you need to do is go to altcoinpro.com after you're done watching this video, create your account, and click on the Start Here lesson under the classroom, and you'll discover how one liquidity pool is earning our members up to 40% yield on digital assets that they already own. Plus, you can go into the DeFi yield picks and see even more opportunities to earn passive income on your coins safe and predictably with complete control and ownership of your assets. You will make significantly more money by being your own bank. And all you need to do is go to altcoinpro.com to get started right now.